Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to the Fitton Center for Creative Arts. My name is Ian Mackenzie Thurley. I am the Executive Director here at the Fitton Center, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here this afternoon for what is our final Celebrating Self for this year, though we continue with the season into January with FC Cincinnati. So lots going on. With that, I do need to thank the Hamilton Community Foundation, the Ohio Arts Council, Arts Wave in Cincinnati, and the City of Hamilton for the continued support of the Fitton Center. Thank you very much. So excited about today. We were deeply saddened last month to cancel our Celebrating Self event with the tragic and quick passing of Mr. Bob Burns. For those who knew, Bob was a legend here in Hamilton, in the music community, particularly in Butler County, but went on to be one of the great social media directors in the world. And I say that was, he had nearly 1 million followers on Instagram with the TSA. He had Rolling Stone magazine saying one of the top five Instagram accounts to follow in the world. He was interviewed by the Washington Post, the New York Times, and he was on the BBC. So we were so looking forward to having him here. He was a great friend of the Fitton, and we do mourn his passing and send our love to his family. With that, today is a day of mourning for our 31st president, George H.W. Bush, and you'll see our flag at half-mast. So at this time, I'd like a moment's silence for the passing of Bob Burns and our President 41, George H.W. Bush. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So on to more lively things, more positive things as we go forward. I'm so excited to have a great crowd in today. I do have to say hello to some of our new friends here from Brookwood Elementary, Highland Elementary, and Bridgeport Elementary right here in the middle. Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome. Fantastic. Always excited to have the kids from Hamilton School District here. And in fact, we also have students from the Hamilton High School Transitions Department out the back. They come in here and help us out. They'll be helping us out bringing the event down today. They're here for us for season launch and other events. So thank you so much to our transition students up there. Wonderful to have you here. Always really exciting as this time of year, and to have the students be able to get out and about and come here to the Fitton Center. We have a great relationship with the Hamilton City School District. I, of course, am a Bridgeport dad. Go Bobcats. So a little bias there for our kids in the middle. So wonderful things. So excited about our event today. As you have most of you know, and some of you may have guessed, I am an immigrant to this country and a naturalized U.S. citizen. They make you take a test. They really do. It's a pretty long test. It's 100 questions. There you go, kids. Remember your civics test. So I have to take one of those. But I have to say my personal knowledge of the indigenous cultures of this country is light. I know with that there are some challenges that has been throughout our history here in the United States, and I mean that as no criticism from my native Australia. If you go into a little research, you will find we have had our own challenges that have to be met and are trying to be met. So for me personally, this was a very personal thing. I haven't had much contact with our Native American community here in America generally. I haven't spent much time out west either, but here in Butler County. So for me, this was a labor of love for us to have a broader conversation and an introduction. And I could think of nobody better than our speaker today. She is a nurse by education and by trade, and a healer in her heart and her work. And she continues that to this very day as the relatively new executive director of the YWCA here in Hamilton, in beautiful German Village. I can plug everything today, can't I? Where she continues that work in service of the community here in Hamilton and in Greater Butler County. As you can see, no time or expense has been spared today as we bring our friends in to present today. I'm so excited to have Wendy Waters-Cannell today presenting on diversity and Native American heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, Wendy Waters-Cannell.
So it is tradition in Native American culture that when you're invited to someone's home, you bring tobacco. So I just gave Ian a pouch of tobacco, and I should also tell him that it is Native American tradition in the first snow that you run around your teepee outside 4 times, dropping it. That's a joke. That's a joke. Thank you, Ian. So I am proud to be here today to talk about my story, and I want to begin by saying that it is important for me to know who's in the audience. So by a show of hands, how many of you here today have Native American ancestry? Good, that's what I expected. Anyone in the audience today a descendant of Quakers or the Religious Society of Friends? These 2 cultures are an important part of my conversation today, so I wanted to make sure that I understood who was here. I also want to qualify by saying I do not represent myself as a tribal member. I am a descendant of Native Americans, and I want to be very clear about that because there are lots of amazing tribes, over 500 of them, 600 languages and dialects that have to be appreciated for their diversity. But I was born and raised here in this area, in Overpeck, graduated from Miami University, Hamilton and Middletown, have lived here with my husband, Chris Cannell, for 30 years. We celebrate our anniversary on Monday, 30 years. Yes, that we need applause for. So I thank Ian for the chance to come and share and tell my story. This institution, particularly for me, has some significance because my story is woven in the tale of quilts. And this institution had a beautiful season opener with Dr. Mazlumi and an exhibit that looked at human rights through fabric art. And so I'm honored to be here today to talk a little bit more about quilts. The quilts that are laying over here on this table represent 3 transitions in my life. The first of which is a maple leaf quilt made by Quakers when I gave birth to my second son, Jackson. The middle quilt is a Lakota star quilt given to my son, Jackson, when he came into the powwow circle. The third quilt was a quilt that was given to me by former employees at the Quaker Heights Care Community as I readied myself to come to the YWCA. The quilt comes from 10,000 Villages, which is a fair trade organization, and the quilt was made by survivors of human trafficking. As they were rescued, they learned new skills, created new quilts, and are selling them for a life of peace. And that seems pretty appropriate for what I do for a living these days. The fourth quilt that I'll be talking about is the one that I'm wearing. So this quilt dances. At the end of this talk today, my beautiful niece Shawnee and I will sing a short song for you. And then Shawnee and my baby brother, Steve, and I will do a dance for you. So we'll have a lecture and then a little bit of culture after that. This story begins first with an understanding about my grandfather. Grandpa Waters, Don Waters, came from the Cleveland area. And the message to our family was that he didn't know his family, he didn't know his parents, and that the Native heritage came from him. He married Rosamond Waters, and they gave birth to my father, who is in the middle of the picture, and I guess he's about 2 or 3 in that picture. So this is the story of where that Native American heritage came in my family. What I would say to you today is after much more research and technology and science that's available to us, we're able to discover that this man's name was probably not even Waters. But it is my name, and so that's what I share with you today. Milton Don Waters married Diane Rosella Schlabach in 1964, and shortly thereafter, they gave birth to a beautiful daughter. And they named her Wendy Waters. Now you can imagine with a face like this and a name like Wendy Waters, every year at the beginning of school, the question was, hey, are you Indian? To which I said, I think. Not really sure. Most of my life growing up was a process of assimilation because I lived here. There are no reservations in the state of Ohio, no active tribes here. There are Native American councils throughout the state of Ohio that are very active in supporting Native Americans in the state of Ohio. I also wanted to just survive and blend in, so I kept my head down. A wonderful teacher, for those of you who have heard me speak before, was able to encourage me to study hard, and she helped me find a full-ride scholarship through the Fort Hamilton Hospital Foundation to attend my university and receive my nursing degree. And without that support of that teacher and that amazing hospital and this community, I wouldn't be standing here today. Shortly after I graduated, I started work at Fort Hamilton Hospital in the intensive care unit as a nurse there. I married Chris. We met my senior year at Miami University. And 7 years later, we gave birth, and I say we because that is a joint process there, to David, our oldest son. So you can see him in the picture on the left there. I moved from Berkeley Square as the director of nursing to a place called Quaker Heights in Waynesville. I took a position there after getting some advanced degrees and becoming a nursing home administrator. And I had a friend say to me, "You're probably Quaker and you just don't know it. So this is going to be a good place for you." And it was. They hired a minority-looking CEO who was just barely 33 years of age. And their charge to me was to renovate their nursing home and build an assisted living and ensure that their mission survived into the future. I would say that was a great deal of faith that they put into a young person, and I'll be eternally grateful for all of their support and everything they taught me about acceptance. There is a huge picture hanging in the foyers at the Quaker Heights Care Community, and it's an Edward Hicks print. Edward Hicks is probably the most famous artist, Quaker artist, and he's known for depicting early Quakers, particularly William Penn, and he always made sure that there were Native Americans in those images. Quakers were known for making sure that they were engaging in fair dealing with Native Americans when they arrived here, paying them for their land and acknowledging their culture without pressure to convert. So I found this particularly striking in my first few days at Quaker Heights 19 years ago. My second child was born shortly after my arrival at Quaker Heights, and the Board of Trustees at Quaker Heights said, "We have a gift for you," and it's a traditional Quaker quilt. So it is a maple leaf done in the colors of the logo of the Quaker Heights Care Community. And the board members joked, it started out as a baby blanket, and then we decided that you should be able to wrap up in it, so it became a twin. And then we saw your husband and realized how big this kid was going to be. So we made it a little bit bigger. So you see up here in the image, Jackson and I in the rocking chair wrapped in this beautiful quilt. And what I felt when I was gifted this amazing piece of art was a sense of acceptance by these wonderful people and their understanding that I was a mother first and a CEO second. And they always respected that when I said, I can't be here, there's something going on with the kids, somebody's sick, someone else hit someone else over the head with a golf club, and they're in the ER. They would say, go. That's a true story. It happened during a board meeting. So I left. I realized in working for Quakers that I literally had a responsibility to walk the talk of their message, which is there is that of God in every human being, and everyone should be celebrated and respected for their individual uniqueness and difference. But I hadn't been very open in my work life about my Native American heritage. So you can see up here I'm holding Jackson in a papoose board. This was a, Madonna picture that I had taken after he was born, and it was a spark of it's time for me to be more authentic with the people that I'm working for, the people that I'm working with, and the people that I'm taking care of. A couple of years later, there was a loss in our family, and this was a very difficult time. My younger brother, Milton, died on May 20th, 2007. And at his memorial, we were able to get a powwow drum present to actually do a memorial song. And it literally was the most moving part of the service that we had. It was a difficult time of recovery. What I would say to you is that the team at Quaker Heights, which you see up here in this image, helped carry me during this time. They made sure that I was away, took care of what I needed to take care of with my family, and they covered everything at work so that I could heal. So they literally acted like a tribe in helping me recover from this. A couple of months later, it was Christmas time, and I wanted to thank them for their support. So with my 2 young sons, we went down around the creek, pulled up some special pebbles. We made medicine bags. We sewed them all together, painted the rocks with little animal prints on it, and I wrote little thank you messages about kind of the spirit that I saw represented by each of those team members who helped me recover from that loss. At the Christmas party that we had, I'm so excited. I can hardly sit in my seat because I cannot wait to give each of these team members their medicine bag. They said, wait, before you do that, we have a gift for you. And they handed me this beautifully turquoise wrapped box that had a glorious bow on it. And as I opened it, inside I realized there was a prayer fan. And so why I share this story with you is because it was a message that they got it. They understood what I needed. I think I understood what they needed. I don't want to say that for certain, but I think I did. And it was just a moment of peace and connection with that incredible group of people. We continued in our healing process. Baby brother Steve and my sister Angie are pictured in this photo, and you can see that our hair is starting to grow longer. At that moment, because Milt had been the one who had recognized the Native American heritage in our family during his life, we elected to start growing our hair. It was a way for us to acknowledge that significant transition in our life and to acknowledge his gift to us. And it was a way for us to connect with him, even though he's not here on this side. We began to attend powwows wherever we could, learn more about Native culture. You see images up here of my older son, David. He does traditional men's Southern dancing. And you see a picture of Jackson on the left, your right, my left, and he is men's traditional dancer. And what I want you to understand is that the Quakers taught me to embrace my roots and celebrate them openly, and that this was absolutely the most important lesson that I could share with my children. Honor who you are, honor where you came from. We continue drumming and singing and dancing and praying, honoring the elders at every powwow. You can see some images here. It might be a little tough to see of David drumming. You can see Chris's big black glasses because he likes to be a rock star on the powwow drum. And then I'm in the back with the mirrored glasses because I want to look around without having people see me looking around. There is always a point of tension anytime you have diverse and different cultures in the same space. Quakers are peaceful. They don't believe in war. Killing another human is killing that of God. And so they're pacifists, conscientious objectors, and the Native American community venerates and celebrates the warriors. The beginning of every powwow is the honoring of the elders, the honoring of those who helped make sure the path was clear for us to be here today. That was in complete tension at Quaker Heights because we're celebrating war and our warriors' achievements, and Quakers want to chart a path to peace without war. So how do different cultures blend? Nephew Weston leaves for war in 2006. He does 2 terms in Iraq. You can see his little baby brother and sister to the right there. And Angie and Steve and I dance because that's how we pray in Native American culture. Every step is a prayer for his safe return, a prayer for his spirit. There is a silent loss that happens when a young man goes off to war. and that is the first loss of innocence. Weston comes back, but he's not the same. His scars are on the inside. He saw in the faces of the Iraqi children who were playing soccer on the side of the road the faces of his own two siblings. They shared tennis shoes because they didn't have enough pair of tennis shoes, so they would trade off while they were playing soccer. Weston's first request at Christmas time was send shoes to Iraq. So we didn't send him a gift box, we sent tons of children's shoes. The beginning of the powwow starts with a grand entry, which comes out of the tradition of the rodeo. The flags are brought in, but the eagle staff first. The eagle staff is the only flag, and it's considered a flag by definition, that can fly higher than the American flag, because Native Americans first captured the American flag. And so that privilege has been granted to that culture and these people that I call my ancestors. I couldn't fix the tension between those who celebrate warriors and those who seek peace. So I just let it sit in a place of understanding as I danced. Cultural diversity and celebration is not about blending. It's about creating respect for the existence of difference in the same room. And that's what the Quakers taught me about my heritage and their religious testimonies. Time marched on after war. Baby boys grew into big boys. Have I mentioned that Chris is a pretty big guy? Yeah, those kids are pretty big. David did a coming of age ceremony at our church where he led a powwow song on stage, much like this, which is pretty remarkable for a 14-year-old boy. He had some native rhythms that just played in his head almost instinctively, and it was just a thing of beauty to see that happen. Jackson, as he came of age, was a male traditional dancer, and what one Lakota elder noticed when he was here in Ohio watching Jackson dance, he said he dances like a Sioux warrior. He dances with his head up. And so I'd like to honor him as part of my family. And they did that. They adopted Jackson as part of the family. So this was an amazing event out at Sunwatch Village, south of Dayton. And it was at the powwow that Guy Jones runs every year. There, it is a Lakota traditional powwow, but my family gets to be there and we get to dance and act crazy, and so it's a lot of fun. Jackson's gift, as he came out of the circle the first time, was a Lakota star quilt. The star quilt is a sign of immortality and of honor, and that's what you see over here as the second quilt in our life. And I realized at that moment that I had a transition of motherhood, and now I have a transition of rites of passage. And fabric art is in both of those spaces. What does that mean in my life? Lakota star, Quaker maple leaf. These designs are as different as they can possibly be. And yet, I submit to you that it was the immigrants to this country at the birth of this nation who helped teach Native Americans the art of quilting. And now quilts are a part of their traditions across many tribes. And I find that a fascinating statement on how we change and evolve over time. Fast forward 19 years, and there's an opportunity for me to return to my hometown as the executive director for the YWCA. The people that I was still working with at Quaker Heights didn't see that transition coming, and neither did I. I thought certain that I would retire from Quaker Heights in a few short years and then just do some volunteering in this beautiful community of ours. But that was not what was meant to be. I applied for the position and was blessed to be given the role, where we work to eliminate racism and empower women. We operate the only domestic violence shelter in this county. We have permanent supportive housing for women who need it in that glorious Masonic building there in German Village. We also have a girls program in the schools called Fierce Girls, standing for fearless, independent, educated, resilient, confident, and engaged. And this amazing table here and several other women throughout this room have been a part of that YWCA history and legacy in this community. And I am proud to stand here today, a part of that. That quilt came from Bangladesh, from women who were escaping human trafficking. It sits on the couch in my office as a reminder of the work that I am now doing here in Hamilton to help the most disenfranchised women and children seek safety. Everyone who comes into my office, I say, ask about the quilt, because I want to be able to tell them the story. We are here to help women and girls thrive. How do we do that? How do we make sure that this continues into the next generation and that we raise an entire generation of fierce girls who become tomorrow's women of influence? It is a process of being in the schools and modeling what it looks like to be fearless in the face of opposition and to be fearless in the face of difference and to be honoring that which is different about yourself and celebrate it. And so that is my message today. We are like quilts. They are comforting, they're warm. We wrap ourselves in them to feel secure. That's what we need to be doing for each other. We are as different in color and shape as the fabrics in the quilt. But the thread in the quilt weaves us together in one existence, in one universe. And that, in my mind, is just divine. Compassion, for me, is knowing when it's time to wrap someone else in a quilt, and strength is knowing when it's time to wrap yourself in a quilt. The space of belonging in quilts is the message that I'm trying to relay to you today. It is equal regardless of culture. Today, I'm wrapping myself in this quilt. This is a quilt. It represents water and wind and movement and motherhood. You can see the women on the back of the dress. One is holding a child with black hair, that would be David, and the other side is holding a child with brown hair, that would be Jackson. The blue represents the name Waters and the movement of waters. And so as I go out and I have the opportunity to talk to people like you in this space and even in the powwow community, the message is, I work for the YWCA and we really like orange. But we also work to end intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and that ribbon is purple. So there are also deep, deep cotton colors of purple in this regalia. So my quilt, my dancing quilt, is a message about multicultural identification. The science and the DNA of where we came from and who our ancestors were say that my great-great-grandfather probably came from somewhere in Saskatchewan, Canada. We have no idea how we ended up here, but I'm honoring that northern tradition in wearing a northern traditional women's dress. It is a buckskin dress because it has buckskin fringe on it, but there are many who have full buckskin dresses with full beading on the yokes and glorious fans and shawls. Each dance that we have within the powwow community has a meaning. Shawnee today will be doing what's called a fancy shawl dance, also known as a butterfly dance, and it will be obvious to you when she starts dancing why it's called that. Steve will be doing a men's traditional dance. He has the large bustle on the back. He's wearing what's called a mop top for his headdress today. And those were often worn by the dog soldiers of the Cheyenne. His dance will be very different from Shawnee and I's. Our goal today is to share a little bit of culture with you as we end up. Shawnee and I will sing a song, and then we hope the technology works and we'll be able to pull up one of our favorite Young Spirit songs and dance for you. I thank you for your attention and your kindness, and I invite Shawnee up here with me now. This song is called Prophecy Song. It's by Joanne Shenandoah. She is Oneida Iroquois Wolf Clan, and we are proud to sing her song today. Ame majado, give a word be daba, Guinea gume, Ghana gonna again go by. Ame majado, give a word be daba, Guinea gume, Ghana gonna again go by, Guinea gume, Ghana gonna again go by. Steve, do you want to come up and get dressed? All right, so we're going to grab a fan and a shawl, and then we'll advance the slide, which hopefully will bring up the powwow song that we're hoping to dance to for you. And then that will conclude the presentation today.
Questions, anyone? We do, right down the front. It's not like honey to have a question.
So Wendy, is this blending of the cultures of the Indian nations common throughout the United States, or is this born of necessity in this Ohio? And I know you go to Indiana. I mean, how you've blended these Indian cultures? How does that happen?
Gosh, honey, that's a great question. Whew. So, what I would say, it's a big question. In the West, there is a high level of distinction between tribes and their individual cultures, even within the tribes. Less so here because there are no reservations. So there is a little bit more blending. And quite honestly, there's some controversy around that. How do you maintain culture and pass it on from generation to generation without losing purity? I think it can be done. And I stand here before you as testimony to that.
Kids, you got any questions? Right here in the middle. We got one? Yes, sir.
Miss Wados, what type of Indian cultures are you blending together exactly?
So science says Cree, C-R-E-E, which is from the French word Christinol, which means first people. And so it was the name given to the tribe in that area when they arrived for beaver pelt trading. So in the Hudson Bay region. I'm blending that knowledge of that culture as well as my own story. So there are pieces to my regalia that represent other parts of my heritage. Romanian heritage, French heritage, American heritage. Good question. Thank you.
Question? The one up. Ian.
Hey, Wendy, it's Boyce. I was wondering, could you share with us any details or what was the song before you guys went into the dance performance? Could you tell us any, what were you guys singing?
That's a great question. Prophecy Song can be found on YouTube. I would encourage you to look it up. Sung by Joanne Shenandoah and one of her nieces. And she says it was a song that was gifted to her and that the words are not as important as how it makes you feel, that the message is more spiritual. But on the album, she talks about it is time for us to awaken, to stand up, because we are being recognized in the spirit world. It is time for us to fulfill our obligations to ourselves, our families, our nations, Mother Earth, and to the Creator.
We have a question over here.
I was wondering, when did you guys learn the dance?
You never learn the dance. It's a constant learning of the dance, and it changes all the time. And for Shawnee, I should let her talk a little bit about her dance, so I'll hand the microphone over to her. It's training, like physical endurance training.
So, sorry, I'm out of breath. For the fancy shawl dance that I do, it's the most contemporary style powwow dance out there, originating around the 1920s era. Excuse me. And around this time, the Charleston dance was becoming really popular. And so there was a blending of cultures, like we were just talking about. Native Americans blended contemporary culture back then, the Charleston dance, with some of their own indigenous culture dances. There's also another story where men were dancing fancy dances. They had a double bustle on their back, so unlike Steve, they would have another bustle on the top on their shoulders, and they would dance really, really fast and fancy. They jump up and spin around, and the women wanted to dance like that too. So the women started putting on the double bustles and started beating the men. So they decided they need a category all of their own. In the fancy shawl dance, it's unique to the dancer. There are some steps that you have to do, and it does change through time. The contemporary style dance is a lot different than the historical fancy shawl dance, but it is pretty unique to the dancer. So that's an interesting part of this dance specifically.
Got another one down here. She already answered it. Look at that. Another one here.
Did you learn any languages, like of your kind?
So I'm going to say that I barely speak English, and I haven't mastered that one yet. But I am working on phrases that are Cree. Tipi miwi siwin was something that we repeated over and over again when Weston was at war, and it is peacemaker.
Well, for the one question for myself, I'm like Wendy. English is a tough language as it is. Cree, I don't speak anything of. Biggest thing for me is probably the language of the heart. Wendy talked about a lot of that in her presentation. This journey for all of us has just been a heart journey. It's a language that everybody knows. You've just got to be willing to listen to it. So for me, I mean, it's inside. It's what comes out. For the men's traditional dance, it's the only dance that I've been doing since I started this journey. The dance itself has evolved. Again, you never learn. You're constantly fighting your own mind. And this is with anything in life for these kids, adults in life. We battle our own demons constantly. They're wanting to tell you you're doing something wrong, you're not doing it the right way. You just need to vary that. Follow your heart, follow your passions, and then let your dance come out.
Got one down here. Excuse me, Pastor Shack.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy, for sharing. You mentioned in your piece about growing your hair. How has that process and journey of the hair growth been?
Yeah, so about that. Steve's hair is way longer than mine, and that's just not right. But in all honesty, it's more about the memory. So the process is in some traditional ways, and you'll see natives that have their hair in modern styles. Not all native people wear their hair in braids, nor do they wear it long. But historically, it was believed that the hair carried the memories. And so for us, long hair carries the memory of Milt.
Got one up the back here.
I love picking on baby brothers. They're such an easy target.
Wendy, could you describe your headdress and your regalia compared to your nieces and your brothers?
Yes, let me step up here since I happen to be shorter than both of them. So the headdress that I have on is newer, talking about blending of cultures. Typically, the crowns are being worn in the southern style tribes, but they have emerged in Manitoba, Canada. And so that's why I elected to have a crown. That, and I wanted to be a little taller. And this definitely makes me a little taller. It's also beautiful. I'm not the crafter. I did not make this glorious beadwork. The artist's name is Danielle Pickering, and she's from Arkansas. And she's incredibly gifted, and I feel blessed to be wearing her art. The quilt itself was made by a quilter here in Ohio, located in Xenia. She looked at my drawings, as sketchy as they were, and we spent a lot of time talking about the dress. That I wanted to honor my name, Wendy Waters. I wanted to honor the diversity of my heritage, which is more than just Native American. And I wanted to honor my motherhood. So that's what's on the back of the dress, in case you didn't get to see that. Two sides of my motherhood, the most important mission in my life. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Going once? Going twice? Well, thank you very much to all of you for being here today. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. We really do appreciate it. I think Midsummer Night's Dream, Act 3, one line surmises everything, which be, she may be but small, but she is fierce. Wendy Waters Canal, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. for all of you today. This has truly been a fantastic experience for all of us. It's great to see the kids here from the schools. Thank you for coming out. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you very soon here again at the Fitness Center. Thank you so much.